Hello ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, my name is Dominic and I'd like to welcome you all to the 8th episode of Spotlight Game of Thrones, the series in which we take a look at some of the characters who feature in the A Song of Ice and Fire novels but are yet to be seen on the hit HBO show. So if you love Game of Thrones and want to know more about the world and its characters outside of the TV show, you've come to the right place. Just to be on the safe side going forward, I'd just like to say that if you don't want any spoilers for the TV show or the books, then you should probably come back later as I may touch upon some sensitive plot points. Now on today's show we'll be looking at none other than Arianne Martell, eldest daughter of the ruling Prince of Dorne, Arianne Martell, and the heiress to Sunspear, the seat of House Martell and the capital of Dorne. Before we get into Arianne, however, let's take a brief look at House Martell and their standing within the Seven Kingdoms. Now House Martell, officially known as House Martell, their ancestry tracing back to the warrior queen Nymeria, is the ruling house of Dorne, a large and rocky peninsula that makes up the southernmost part of Westeros. Their coat of arms is a gold spear piercing a red sun on an orange field, and their words are unbowed, unbent, unbroken. They are what is known in Westeros as salty Dornishmen, with dark hair, dark eyes and olive skin. House Martell traces its origins back to the Andal invasion of Westeros, but the defining moment in their history came about with the arrival of Nymeria, warrior queen of the Rhoynar, a river-faring people of Essos who had fled the ever-expanding Valyrian freehold aboard 10,000 ships. Although the Martell house and lands were only minor at the time of her arrival, Nymeria took Mors Martell, the then head of House Martell, to husband, and combining his strength with her own, began a campaign to unite all of Dorne under one rule in a war known as Nymeria's War. This also combined their sigils, the Martell's golden spear and Nymeria's red sun, into what is the current Martell coat of arms. Using the Rhoynish tradition, Nymeria named her husband as the Prince of Dorne rather than the Westerosi styled king, and instilled that lands and title passed down to their eldest daughter, leading to gender playing little to no part in the line of succession in Dorne. Many years later, with the coming of Aegon the Conqueror and his dragons, the Martells and Dorne proved to be the only house capable of resisting the Targaryen conquest, with their desert guerrilla warfare helping them outmaneuver the dragons and Targaryen forces. With the Dornish campaign proving too costly, Aegon the Conqueror allowed the Martells to rule Dorne as sovereign princes, a standing that they held for 2 centuries until they eventually joined the Seven Kingdoms through marriage. So now that we know a little about the history of House Martell, let's talk a little about Arianne Martell. Arianne Martell was born in 276 AC at Sunspear to Prince Doran Martell and his wife Lady Melario of Norvos. She is Doran's firstborn child and, according to Rhoynish customs and Dornish laws, is the heiress to Sunspear. As a child, Arianne was a pudgy, flat-chested girl, and she would pray to the Seven every night to give her beauty when she was older, a wish it seems they would grant in spades. Although she would go on to have 2 younger brothers, Quentyn and Trystane, she was never close with them due to Quentyn being sent away to page at a young age and Trystane being 11 years her junior. Instead, she grew up close to her wet nurse's son Andre Dalt and her cousin Tyene Sand, even going so far as to experiment with the 2 of them sexually at a young age. She also engaged in vivid sexual fantasies and would grow to one day be a very sexually promiscuous adult. Now Arianne once held Princess Rhaenys Targaryen, but was so young she doesn't remember this. Also from a young age she was enamoured with her uncle Prince Oberyn Martell, the Red Viper. Now before the events of the novel, we learn that Arianne's temperament and willful nature seems to have been shaped by a lot of miscommunication and confusion between her and her father Prince Doran Martell. When Arianne was young, she found a letter written from Doran to her younger brother Quentyn stating that one day he would sit the throne of Dorne. This devastated Arianne as she assumed that her father meant to pass up her birthright to her brother. However, in truth, Prince Doran planned to marry Arianne to the exiled Prince Viserys Targaryen in hopes that she would one day become the Queen of the Seven Kingdoms if he helped Viserys reclaim his throne. Doran even planned to send Arianne to the free city of Tyrosh under subterfuge in order to meet the young Viserys. However, his plans were scuppered when Arianne's mother threatened to commit suicide if Doran sent another of her children away, as Quentyn Quentyn had been fostered prior to the arrangement. Because of this, Arianne never found out about her father's machinations. Doran soon grew wary of Arianne's friendships with her cousins, especially Tyene, believing that if he did share his plans with Arianne, she would be unable to keep them a secret from those close to her, and soon the whole realm would know. Because of the misunderstanding between the two, Arianne's relationship with her father became strained, and she eventually began to believe that Doran did not want her as his heir. Doran's plans were of course thrown out of the window with the death of Viserys at the hands of Khal Drogo. When Myrcella Baratheon is sent to Dorne as a ward to marry Prince Trystane Martell, it is reported that she has grown close to Arianne. Arianne also seduces the knight Ser Aris Oakheart, who is sent to Sunspear with Princess Myrcella in order to guard her. After the death of Prince Oberyn Martell at the hands of the Mountain Ser Gregor Clegane, Dorne is in uproar and Prince Doran is forced to imprison Arianne's cousins the Sand Snakes in order to prevent them stirring up notions of outward rebellion against the crown. Doran also sends Quentyn across the Narrow Sea to honour the marriage pact between a child of his and a Targaryen, telling him to propose marriage to Daenerys. Arianne however sees this as Doran and Quentyn conspiring against her to steal her birthright. In order to both avenge her uncle's death and maintain her birthright, Arianne sets into motion her plan to retake power and begin a rebellion against the crown. The plan, which I talk about at length in my video on Darkstar Ser Gerald Dane, which you can check out here in the annotation, is to crown Myrcella Baratheon as Queen of the Seven Kingdoms under Dornish law, so that she will inherit over her younger brother, King Tommen Baratheon. Ultimately, however, Arianne's plan fails and results in Myrcella sustaining a serious injury at the hands of Darkstar and the death of Ser Aris Oakheart, Myrcella's bodyguard. After the botched plan, Arianne is kept in confinement by her father and is forbidden contact with the outside world. Prince Doran only relents when Arianne enforces a hunger strike. Eventually, Arianne is brought before her father, where he informs her that the Kingsguard member Ser Balon Swan is on his way to Sunspear and that Doran will need her help in convincing Myrcella Baratheon to lie about the circumstances that led to her injury and Ser Aris Oakheart's death. In anger, Arianne finally reveals to her father that she read the letter about Quentyn becoming Prince of Dorne all those years ago, and also accuses Doran of inaction. She says to her father, "You favour him and always have. He looks like you, he thinks like you, and you mean to give him Dorne. Don't trouble to deny it, I read your letter." This forces Doran to at last reveal the truth of his plans to her, explaining that everything he has done is part of a larger plan to avenge the deaths of Arianne Martell and her children at the hands of Ser Gregor Clegane and the Lannisters. He tells her, "I have worked at the downfall of Tywin Lannister since the day they told me of Arianne and her children." When Ser Balon Swan comes to Dorne, he presents the skull of Ser Gregor Clegane at a feast held in the honour of his arrival, a gesture meant to appease the Dornish people. At this feast, Arianne sits on the right side of her father, a place of high honour. She attempts to flirt with Ser Balon, but he resists her advances and is not as easily distracted from his duties as Ser Aris Oakheart. Aereo Hotar remarks, "This one is not so easily seduced as was his sworn brother. Ser Aris was a boy despite his years. This one is a man and wary." Arianne, now seemingly on the same wavelength as her father, has convinced Myrcella to lie to Ser Balon Swan and claim that Ser Gerald Dane was responsible for both her injury and the death of Ser Aris. This is done not only to appease the crown, but to turn Ser Balon's attention elsewhere, as Prince Doran believes that the Kingsguard Knight has been sent by Cersei to lead a Dornish retainer into an ambush where his youngest son Trystane will be killed and Myrcella stolen back. From sample chapters of The Winds of Winter, we learn that Arianne Martell has received a letter from Jon Connington revealing the supposed survival of Arianne Martell and Rhaegar Targaryen's young son Aegon, and Arianne is sent by her father to discover the truth of these rumours. She and several companions set out, eventually arriving at Ghost Hill before departing by ship to the Stormlands. Thank you all so much for watching this 8th episode of Spotlight Game of Thrones. Sorry it was a little late this week, we were having a few internet troubles here at home. I'll do my best to make sure that they are up every Friday in future. Please feel free to subscribe to the channel in order not to miss out on more videos, and please do check out the playlist Spotlight if you want to find out anything else about other characters that are in the books but aren't featured in the show. If you did like, please do hit that like button down below and share amongst your friends. Thank you again for your time, and I'll see you again next week. Goodbye.